I mean, acting is just trying to lie truthfully. It's easier to tone it down than to bring it up incrementally, at least in my experience. And to my credit, the whole floor was lined with X's. So Josh telling me to land on this X was the least helpful thing anyone could ever say. I've been technically signed for probably 5 or 6 years. And, as life takes you different paths and everything, but I've always, I think since halfway through college, known that acting was the career direction I wanted to go in for the rest of my life. I'm finally figuring out a way to build a business to support myself, to pursue acting for as long as I can. The way I describe this film and my role in it is very character heavy and story driven. And so my role is Matt O'Donnell, who I think is a movie about, introspection, self-exploration, and just growth in a character, really. And that was the main focus. I found out about it through Actors Access. And I saw that one and I really liked it because this seemed very well thought out, simple, something that you could pull off well without a huge budget, and story driven. It was acting, it was storytelling. And that's what excited me about it, was the ability or the opportunity to maybe make a real story. Even if, let's say I bomb, never act in anything again. I think we made a really cool, good film that was still an indie film from a budget and a crew standpoint, but I think it's really good and it's really solid story. As actors, you apply to something, or your agent applies, sends you in for it, and then you have to emotionally and mentally just forget about it. You're like, awesome, I did that work. If I hear back, great. If I don't, great. And a lot of times you don't, because casting directors or people who won't say, hey, you weren't chosen for this. You just don't hear back. So I didn't hear back for a month, and I had completely forgotten about the project. And then I got an email, something about love to fill in the blank role of Matt for this film. And I was like, what is this film? I don't remember applying to this at all. Zero recollection. And I had to go back and find the original posting for the role and everything. And then we had the table read, and I was like, I'll be in Florida with my family on our summer vacation thing. But I can do it, over FaceTime or Zoom or whatever. So we did the table read down there. And I think we started filming the next week, I think it was. So it was just me printing out the script and then just trying to go through my process of learning character. And first day of set was pretty soon after that. And it was just get back, tell the restaurant, hey, I'm gone for 2 weeks. I don't know what to tell you. Which fortunately, they were cool with it and it all worked out. I was like, I got to go do this. My process of trying to learn about Matt was to go through and literally go through each line and figure out, what do I want on a grand scale? And then take that same question of what do I want and break it down all the way down to each individual line or every other line or something like that. Right. And then also not just doing an emotion, playing an emotion, but figuring out how am I trying to get what I want in this situation? Who is the person I'm interacting with? And obviously I don't know the whole backstory every time, which is why we'd have our talks, but I can make a general assumption that this person is, my wife, or this person is someone I just met on the street, and create a very rough little backstory there to have something to work off of. For me, keeping it simple like that and building a framework to build off of, so that when we can sit down and be like, what does the coffee shop mean to me? What does this mean to me? That then can help fill in all the cracks and all the foundation of the framework that I already started to build. I don't think that it's healthy personally to pull from a lot of personal experience for roles, but there was definitely finding the feeling that you would recognize in certain scenes, and not necessarily going back to that time in your life, but recognizing that same feeling would be applied in the situation I'm acting in. I think the first couple of days, I probably didn't do as good of a job as I should have. I don't think I did a bad job, but I think about 3-4-ish days in there, it was some of the scenes with Mark. That's when I started it became less about me acting and whatever scene this was, because we did a lot of very short little setup scenes. I think in the first few days, but when we started having real conversations, acting is just trying to lie truthfully. you know? And so it was just for me, and this is the part where it's hard to like put into words, but just fully just falling into whatever that scene was and reacting to stuff. And so if I was angry in that scene, or if I was hurt or upset, the director will always be like, hey, all right, let's tone it down a little bit. It's easier to tone it down than to bring it up incrementally. So at least in my experience. So in those moments, to go from drinking coffee to action, I was just realizing how human of a story this was. There's no superpowers. There's no, I've been thrust into a super spy mission that I wasn't planning on. There, you know what I mean? It was just like, can you imagine how, if you were a third party fly on the wall, if you were a third party person sitting in this location and seeing this interaction going on, how awkward would you feel, or how upset or how sad would you feel for this person? That's how that person feels times 10. So take that feeling that you would feel, you'd be like, God, that sucked for that person. You know what I mean? Like, or a couple breaking up or whatever the case may be, multiply that by 10. And that feeling of just, whether it be desperation or just happiness or something, that's where you're going towards. You're never going to necessarily get there all the time, but to find that path and then to go towards that was kind of what I looked for. I looked for that path of, I know this is where this is supposed to go, and I got to just go down this full throttle until David says, hey, that's great, let's bring it back a little bit. That was my thought process. I think I got in like at a midnight the night before, and I think our call time was like 6, which actually isn't that bad for a film set either. But it was just like, I didn't like go to bed at 9 o'clock or 10 and like wake up and like have let me prepare for the day. It was like, get there. So sorry I woke you up, Mark. Brush your teeth, go to bed, get up at like 5:30 or 6, something like that or whatever, and we're going. That first day, we didn't jump into anything crazy. I do remember doing a scene from the end of the movie pretty early on. And that was the first time where I had to like find some real content, you know what I mean? Like some real meat in what was going on. And I don't think it was necessarily challenging, but that was like a turn it up a notch, like hone the craft in kind of thing. I mean, it's a lot of in your head. Like acting is just very in your head work. It's just finding yourself. It's letting go of, we used to, in acting class, we do like an exercise where you just lay down flat, like fully just lay down flat prone. And you just imagine like your head just kind of relaxing, and then your shoulders and like every part. It's letting go of little things you didn't know you were worried about or thinking about, or did I forget this or whatever. And then if you, again, if you kind of focus on finding that character at some point, those kind of start to merge. And that's when you're like, okay, I'm kind of getting into a groove now. So that's what it was. It was me being like, if I lose my job at the restaurant, whatever. If anything happens over the next 2 weeks, doesn't matter, because if I crash and burn after doing this film, I'll have done my best on this project. I've been on some big sets in, extra or smaller roles. And the bigger you get, usually the less efficient you get. And I think and obviously so it was easier for us to be more efficient because we were small, but I really loved working on the set. Everyone just did their job and did a good job at it. And also enjoyed doing their job was a big thing too. Everyone was there asking questions, helping out, or just staying back and be like, I'm not gonna put another set of hands into this because it's not necessary, kind of thing. Typical day on set looked like showing up and running lines with whoever was there, right? With whoever we were doing stuff with that day. Run the lines a little bit, walk a little bit, and running those lines and kind of finding that path into to Matt meant that once we did start rolling, usually we were pretty solid. And there were mostly just like, we needed a slightly different angle, or we needed to, change this one light here. We just killed it. We'd kill it until like 12 or 1 or whatever. We would take a break and everyone would like be chill and eating. And we would take those breaks well, I think. And then we'd kill it until the end of the night or whenever we're done. And just trying to, not, because you don't want to make a decision that's totally outside of the vision, but making little decisions about characters and finding that camaraderie and that bouncing back and forth in those little moments that would eventually lead to theoretically a better scene. So everyone was there. There was no like times where we weren't working on our respective craft, which was kind of cool. From a character standpoint, early on, I remember being worried that I was just angry all the time. I think we did a good job of tweaking that, of building some layers into the character. That was the biggest challenge for me from a character standpoint, and from like I think the story's great. I think all these things are great, but I was worried that you would watch the film and be like, this dude was just yelling all the time, and he was just angry. And he, even though he like turned it around at the end, and like we all expected to and everything, I mean, there was not a lot of this. It was just kind of like, So I remember having a couple talks with you where I think I either voiced that or I asked or something, or we chatted about it, and we didn't necessarily change a ton of the lines, but we changed a lot of the intentions. We changed a lot of the, the tone and like, why am I doing what I'm doing? What do I really want? Do I want this person to understand, or do I really want forgiveness? I don't know how to express it. Or do I really want love and I don't know how to express it, kind of thing? And trying to mesh that in with constantly yelling or being frustrated or down, that was a solution there. But that was the biggest challenge for me as a character. If we ever watch it at my house or whatever, I'm sitting in the back with like, the Marvel disguise cap down hoodie thing, because I just feel so cheesy, and I just always felt so whatever. And even if I knew my intentions were correct and my decisions were good and everything that we had discussed and the character was being well fleshed out, I just felt so stupid. So that was hard, because I knew that even though we were probably doing a good job, I was, when I would watch it back is when I would be worried. In the moment, good acting. I think the character came through. After the fact, I was like, I really hope that this is going to turn out well. I really the scenes with Mark in the cafe and the motel, because it was this back and forth energy. And I really enjoyed those, because you learned so much and there was so much emotion and there was so much change. And you know what I mean? Like that, there was a lot going on there, and there was different tones, and he was sarcastic and I was like flying off the handle. And it was just there. It was very contrasted, and I really enjoyed those. So those were both fun to shoot, and they felt good. Like after you would yell cut, there was like like I felt good, like that. Yeah, like that felt good. You know what I mean? And then I think my answer to the most fun, just laughing moments, were the door at the motel and me not being able to work a key card to save my life. It was the most like there was when you put the key in and then you have to turn the handle. The time in between those two things needing to happen was so small. It was awful. Me not being able to drop a phone correctly. And to my credit, the whole floor was lined with X's. So Josh telling me to land on this X was the least helpful thing anyone could ever say. But I could not stop laughing at any of those scenes. It was just so funny. And let me bring it back to one serious note real quick. Not even serious, but like, so I'm not that extroverted of a person. I'm not a big goofball type person unless there's an energy and I've fully like given myself to something, right? I'm not that way at work or the restaurant usually. I'm sarcastic and I'll cut up with people, but me being able to do that and act that way for me was because I felt comfortable, and I wasn't trying to act a certain way or be a certain way, because I had let all that stuff go and was trying to finding Matt. And so little moments like that were me being able to just, I don't really care what anyone thinks of me kind of thing. And it turns into goofy moments, but then hopefully, theoretically, you are able to switch easily to something else, or a different path, to find the character path, because there's not all that stuff that you're worrying about as a normal human being in between the way of switching between emotions and intentions. The objective of the movie was to see the character growth. And sometimes I think people might say like, oh, well, that sounds, boring. Like that's not the case if it's done well. I think that's storytelling.
Don't be like me. This isn't real. Everything I did was for you. Come on, Dad, please. You don't need me. You need them.